Hello, everyone. Well, I haven't done a vibe check in months and months and months and months. But I figured today would be a good day to check in, see how everyone was doing. My own vibe has been on the up and up, kind of since January 20th. I mean, I don't know what could have possibly happened on January 20th that would make my my vibe have such a to the stars, but something did. I just feel like I've been able to relax a little bit and not wake up to some like fresh hell. Every single 24-hour news cycle would be something so dramatic and so absolutely anger-inducing and frustrating. I've not experienced a single day of that in a couple weeks now, and boy oh boy, that I can't recommend that enough. It has, like, a burden has lifted from me. It's like, I know that the current administration is not perfect, but it's also not drama heavy, and it's not raising my blood pressure constantly, so that's a perk. I mean, truly, just Trump Twitter alone has been just heavenly for me personally, and I had him blocked on Twitter. I've had him blocked for like years, and yet his nonsense still crept into my life. So, sayonara to that. Political front. I got some good news that my parents have received both doses of the Moderna vaccine as of yesterday, and they're feeling okay today. Just a little bit of weather, but no substantial side effects to speak of. I am still, obviously, in the vaccine trial for AstraZeneca. I am very sure I got the placebo. I haven't been unblinded yet. However, that is an option for me, and I'm a little hazy on the details. When they told me this last time, my next appointment's on Friday, tomorrow, and I can be unblinded, and then maybe I'll be able to get the shot when it's available. Like, it's not even approved here yet, but whenever it is. And I know it's not, like, the efficacy isn't as stellar as the mRNA vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna ones, but it's certainly better than nothing. And right now, we just need to get some protection in everybody, because currently nobody has any immunity to it. That's been the novel aspect of the virus. So I'd be super stoked if that is something that I could do in, like, March rather than the summer. Like, the Pfizer, they're saying that it's going to be probably summer before someone would be able to access the vaccines. Regardless, I get $100 every time I go to that vaccine trial, so I'll get $100 more tomorrow. And you know what? I'm going to invest in a nice bra. I've decided. I don't know. And by nice, I mean, like, not from Target. Let me be very specific about what nice means. I've never even, like, gone to Victoria's Secret and bought a bra, and that's not even considered nice anymore, but it was to, like, 16-year-old me. Let's see, more vibe check. I've noticed something recently that I consider to be pretty substantial news. I take Lamictal as a mood stabilizer, and I have for a very long time, really, off and on. Confirm that if you are somebody who has some kind of, like, personality disorder that is akin to mine, I have borderline personality disorder, that Lamictal is like a godsend drug. It obviously, personality disorders aren't cured like that. But it makes some of the symptoms of this personality disorder minimal in comparison. It's kind of one of those things, like, where you don't notice that it's made a big impact until you kind of, like, look back at the past and can kind of compare and contrast. I recently deep dive into my old blog. I don't recommend anyone do that if they have a blog that they have, like, somehow kept access to over the years, but I still use mine. It's on WordPress, littlelostsunny.wordpress.com. We film reviews now, but I do occasionally put some, like, of my thoughts out into the world. Ooh, spooky. And anyway, back before I was medicated or had any kind of therapy whatsoever, absolutely batshit and wild. And, like, I have no relationship to that person anymore whatsoever beyond her being a part of me. It's not something that I relate to at all in any way in this current incarnation of myself. Granted, granted, age has a lot to do with that. You know, I am 35 now, and I started that blog when I was like 22 years old, believe it or not. And I used it when I was an alcoholic. Oh boy. And I don't even remember writing some of those. I wrote a lot of really dark poetry back then. Some of it's pretty good. Alcohol credit for this one specific thing, and it's giving me the confidence to just try new things and to just like put myself out there. Meanwhile, that is not a trait that I possess. That's unfortunate because I think I miss out on a lot of things because of it. But needless to say, just being able to peruse what past Sunny was thinking and feeling and compare it to it's just night and day. It's quite shocking how depressing the past was for me. It was just as difficult to endure from my perspective and from being inside my own head as anybody else around me. And I kind of have to deal with a lot of remnant vestigial guilt from thinking like back and reflecting on those times where I just made everyone's life hell, including my own. Put a lot of undeserved stress on everybody. But that is the past. That is the past, and we must bid it adieu to focus on the present. And I am. Whenever I do, like, think back in hindsight in 2020 and all that, I kind of feel proud of myself and the progress I've made. And I should. It's something that not everybody can do. Personal growth requires a lot of pain, shame, embarrassment, a general sense of uncomfortableness, having to kind of live with that older version of yourself, that outdated version. But you had to like deal with that kind of old you shit to realize how much you needed to work on yourself and seek out to improve, because I couldn't continue living like that. Something had to change. I mean, it's kind of an open secret that I deal with suicidal ideations, or I have in the past, and that I was committed to a psych ward in 2010 for slicing my neck open and with a razor blade. And was definitely something that added to that. Most of my self-harm scars were all during that epoch of my time. Can't take those back. And I've only done probably 6 scars that I've acquired since I got sober in 2014, which is a victory in and of itself. They're all victories. I mean, getting sober was a victory. Overcoming all these bouts of eating disorders was a victory. I wish that these were less about overcoming obstacles and more about putting something positive in this world, like something to be able to hang up on the wall and be proud of, you know, accomplishment-wise, but they're not. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they are less important. I don't know. I gotta pat myself in the back or else I'll just feel sad all the time. But I really have noticed that a lot of really super positive changes on a molecular level that I'd like to list out. Number 1, I have learned the importance of boundaries in my life. Boundary crossing is not even something that I knew I did until 2017 when, well, I don't really want to go into the story, but somebody taught me a very important lesson about that. I was just unable to recognize was crossing lines, and learning how to deal with that and learning that that was an issue I needed to address has actually helped me a lot, you know? Like, it helps other people. It has also helped me. It's like a mutually beneficial lesson that I've learned in this life. And the difference between the version of me that existed 4 years ago in that area, in that regard, and the one that exists now are incompatible, and just truly a miraculous 180 that I have done. And I cannot thank this person who taught me this. Deleted a video, so I'm just going to try to rehash what it was that I was saying. And it's that somehow I've acquired this ability to prevent myself from leaning into jealousy. I think that part of that has to do with in some way, but some of it is just being very cognizant of when those feelings start creeping in and learning how to sit down with those thoughts and really work through them and realize how stupid I'm being, kind of just back off from that, because I think that it's kind of in human nature for jealousy to kind of consume us at times, but I've really, really learned to back off from that instinctive emotion. Just address it in real time before it becomes something that just consumes me. Still feel those pings and pangs, but I'm able to let them go very quickly, and I have just learned to be a little bit more confident in myself in that area. You know, like anytime that I feel jealous or someone, I just have to take stock and look at myself in the mirror and be like, you don't have any reason to feel that way. You know, if it's something that you're happy, I mean, learn to be happy that someone else did well. Be happy that someone else had a success. You don't have to just instantly compare yourself to that person, because that's not healthy, and what the fuck is the point? I'm good enough as I am, you know? And if I am jealous in terms of like a personal relationship, I'm jealous person because I think like, I don't know, that somehow a friend of mine or a partner of mine likes that person more, that I'm able to rationale that realize that that's crazy. I mean, sometimes it will be true. Sometimes you will be like in a relationship, and whoever this person is that you are worried like somebody else, they may. And that is what it is. And if that friendship dissolves or switches forms or whatever, or that partner of yours decides that they're more interested in somebody else on a permanent basis, well, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means that that's just natural progression of some that's just how human couplings are, or you know, like sometimes that happens, and you just gotta deal with it. That doesn't mean, I mean, maybe there are areas that you can improve, but if it's just simply time has changed the course of that relationship, then it is what it is. Nothing really you can do about that. All knows that jealousy will solve nothing. Nothing good comes from it unless you actively change the way your brain reacts to that impulse. And that's kind of the direction I've had to take with it. And jealous about, you know, someone who I think looks prettier than me, or somebody who is more fit than me, or somebody who is just accomplished more than me in whatever area, and that's like everybody, then I just have to use that emotion and channel it into something productive, like improving myself, you know? If I can't just be mad at somebody for being fitter, or for being able to present themselves in a way that I find appealing and in comparison to me better. And if I think that somebody else is a better writer than me, or they're smarter than me in this particular area, more knowledgeable than me, just accomplishing things in life that I feel that I'm falling short at, being mad at them, being jealous of them is energy when you could just be using it to like try to just get better in that thing, you know? Like if I feel someone's smarter than me in this particular area of politics, for instance, read up on it. I have full control over that. If I think that somebody, proud of them for being able to stay on a diet and lose weight or whatever, then be happy for them because they did something really great, and be proud of them, and then you can just focus on your own struggles in that area, you know, like on altering your own lifestyle, and not in a competitive way, but use their success as an inspiration. This is the way that I've been learning to deal with jealousy. Be confident and be productive. Some of the things I've been working on, learning how to tell people how I really feel about them, and not being too shy to dole out compliments or words of encouragement, or asking them if they need help or whatever, you know, too reticent about or too close-lipped on before because of insecurities or anxieties or whatever. I've learned to become better about verbalizing them and vocalizing them in a way that feels very natural and non-threatening, and I think something has actually benefited people around me. I always thought that it would be a little intrusive of me to put myself out there in that way, or it'd be misconstrued or something, but practice has made it to where it's just as simple as breathing fresh air. And that's been a huge thing for me, because I always have such love for everybody around me, and I have such empathy, and I try to just learn to feel that I'm worthy of being in someone else's orbit, you know? Like, I used to think that I was just a waste of space, and that I'd be better off, everybody would be better off if I just was non-existent, you know? But I'm starting to learn that there are some aspects of me that are perhaps worthy, and that I improve people's lives, and in some that I'm a drain and a strain in others, but I think that I bring something positive to at least the people directly in my life, that I fit into a role where I am useful in some aspect. And that's new for me, I have to say. I don't know if I'm fooling myself or if this is just like delusion, but I'm really just starting to see a minimal amount of value that I perhaps have, and that is a good change of pace. It's not enough, and I still have so much work to learn to build up myself to where I'm not so insecure all the time. My anxieties are still debilitating me. My thinking has changed, and I'm a lot more positive in terms of wanting to make some kind of change that is substantial in my life, that perhaps puts me on a path to some kind of success in any area of my life, you know? Like maybe if it's just to make a friend. And I was actually the other day about how I'm really grateful for the online presence that I have. You know, I'm in a wonderful circle of friends on various social media platforms, but I'm really starting to miss having somebody to watch TV with, you know, or just go throw the frisbee with or whatever, you know, just like small little things. I just wish that I had that. But what I was concerned about is that that's a lot of pressure to put on one person, you know. I just was thinking, I was verbalizing this to my mom, that I didn't want to put the onus or the burden on one other human in this world to be my only friend when I would be one of many of their friends. So much pressure. And my mom was saying, just the thought that you would be thinking about that for the other person is growth, you know? And I think that's one of the aspects of the boundary thing that has been very helpful, is that I can see beyond my and like I said, I have way too much, I have a surfeit of empathy, but in this one particular way, because of my anxieties and stuff, I would be so concerned with myself, and how I'm presenting myself to them. Me. Am I benefiting them in some way, that I wouldn't necessarily think about, like how awkward it would be for me to need them all the time, and they'd be my one sole source of emotional support and companionship or whatever, and they wouldn't need me in that same way, you know. I would just be one part of their life and not their whole life. And so that's something I'd have to grapple with, but I don't like a lot of people, and that sounds so rude, and it's not in the general sense. It's like there are lots of people that I admire, respect, and think are good, decent people. It's just I wouldn't want to spend time with them on a friend level. I'm a very unique person, and I require very unique types of people that I would enjoy and who would enjoy me. I'm a very specific type, and I'm not for everybody, and unfortunately I live in an area where there's not a lot of people like me. And that's another one of those things that's going to be difficult to overcome. But I told my psychiatrist office that I would have some goals ready, and that was one of the ones that I decided on, was that I'd like to make a friend, maybe more. I communicated this to my dad, and then I went through that period where I hated everything about myself, and I didn't think that why would anyone possibly want to be with me. But now I'm starting to think maybe I will find it. I thought maybe someday, maybe I'm ready to be in a relationship again, like with a woman, and because it's been 4.5 years, I don't know. Summer 2016 is when my ex broke up with me, and I have loved being single. No offense to her, I didn't realize how much I needed to be by myself to figure myself out, you know. I had so many problems that I just really needed time by myself to address, and I have. It's something to entertain. It's an idea that if I dangle in front of me, maybe it's a good thing to try to make that one of my goals, you know. Why not? I'm cool, right? But I'm not gonna look for a relationship until my life is back on track. But I'm starting to think maybe this is on track. I can't just keep postponing this forever. I can't just say, you know, once my life is 5 years old and still not have attempted to date anybody. I just have to be honest about who I am up front and find the person who thinks that that's something they'd be willing to take on. Once again, finding somebody lesbian who has similar interests to me, is liberal, and just can put up with all my bullshit and my Lady Gaga and Brandi Carlile fandom. Quite the monumental task. But if I don't start the process, it'll never happen. I do not live in a rom-com as much as I would like to believe it, and that kind of stuff just doesn't happen when you're, I have experienced the like love at first sight thing a couple times through just happenstance, just running into people, and when I was in my 20s, and relationships with those people, with those women, and that was awesome, but you don't just really, that just doesn't happen. I'm not gonna run into somebody like what I'm looking for. that I can tell. I'll have to put some legwork in at some point. Obviously, COVID is preventing that from happening. And not being able to drive, that one's hard. People are gonna have to give a lot in this relationship, and I'm sure that I can give back as much as I take. One of those symbiotic things. I used to say that maybe I should just invest in one night stands or friends with benefits, which still don't hate that idea, although obviously I'm not participating in any of that because where do I meet these people? But the only reason I really said that is because I just don't see what I have to another person relationship-wise. It does always feel like it's one-sided, like I just take, and maybe that was the case in the past. Maybe I probably wasn't as good a girlfriend as I'd like to think I would be now because of how much I've learned over the past few years, because of the way that I've analyzed my most recent relationship to the point where, like, I barely even think about it anymore because, like, I've beaten that horse to death. The postmortem. I've picked all the pieces that I think are helpful for starting a potential hypothetical next relationship. I've taken it apart and dissected it, realized all that. Granted, I assure you that my ex was not innocent of a lot, but I know that it takes two to tango, and I was not a saint either. As much as my intentions were good, I just was incapable. The type of partner I think I can be now. But live and learn. That's if you can't look at past relationships and find ways to improve yourself for the future, then like you're not say. The two biggest takeaways was 1, get rid of pride. 2, get over your anxieties and insecurities because your partner loves you the way that you are, and you have to just believe them when they tell you that, like you can't let your fucked up brain change the reality of the situation. And I always did that, like I couldn't believe that, and that really does have a negative effect because I don't know. But anyway, the other things that I've learned are to give more and don't be so with your emotions and your love. Be less protective of yourself and more willing to just kind of put yourself out there. I just spent so much of my time with her in my own head and dealing with all this shit and not being able to communicate it or articulate it in a way that really was helpful for her. And instead I would take out a lot of stuff on her, take out my own anger with myself, or I just wasn't very generous with my emotions, I guess. And I was just a fucked up person. I was just a broken person, and I feel like I'm less broken now. And I feel like I'm way more concerned with making sure that I let other people know that things are not their fault a certain way. I have to make sure that I take the responsibility for myself, and not try to make everyone else feel like shit around me just because I'm going through it. One of my big mistakes, I think, with her was that I would withdraw so much, and I didn't tell her or show her how much I loved her. I had those thoughts, and I felt it, and I could communicate it with text sometimes, like writing them out, but I couldn't show it because I didn't love myself. And I could, until you do, it's difficult to really love somebody else or to show them. And I think about that a lot. She really needed to feel what I thought, and I just couldn't do it. And I have worked so hard to fix that about myself. I think that I finally figured it out, but it's like I probably did some really irreparable damage to her because of my own crazy. I hate it. I hate thinking about that. So I try to just move on. Just take solace in the fact that, like, she's happy now, happily married, and I will be better because of that relationship. And I'm sure that she would be grateful for that, you know, like, that she, I don't know. I can't take back things that were done in the past, but I can use the stuff that I learned to improve myself and be better for the next girl. And that's a positive out of a negative. And I wasn't a terrible girlfriend. I think I was actually pretty okay, but there were some serious faults there, serious flaws, and I hated it at the time. I felt like shit at the time, and yet I still couldn't do anything about it. Whatever, you know. So I've worked really hard on loving myself a little bit more and recognizing my worth and knowing that somebody will be lucky to have me one day. God damn it. Final thing I will say is that a long time ago in these videos I talked about Lamictal, and I was thinking that I have not woken up and I can't even remember the last time it was that I woke up just angry or just dour and wanting to feel my inner pain, you know, like I haven't woken up and been salty to anybody or made them feel bad or hurt or anything like that. I just kind of wake up in a good mood every day. That doesn't mean I feel comfortable with the way I look or my intelligence or whatever. I'm always self-conscious about that, or where my life is. You know, I hate all that shit, but I'm just kind of wake up feeling okay. And I think full credit in that area has to go to that little pill that I take. It's the only medicine from the psychiatrist that I put into my body, and it has to be the thing that's making the difference. Because there's nothing else that really, like, yeah, working on these small little therapy things has been a long-term improvement on myself, but that doesn't have any impact on just the mood that I wake up in, you know, or I want to kill myself or whatever. That's incredible. I wish that the anxiety would dissipate, but I'm working on it. I'm always working at it. So my vibe, pretty good.